So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Gale playing Ana, probably one of my favorite Anas, and if you want to see any other videos about Gale, or about any other Ana player, I guess, press the playlist at the top right of the screen right now, as there are a few more tip videos that I have made about this character. Anyways, at the beginning of this game right there, we saw him going up on the high ground, of course, mainly just getting vision, trying to heal his teammates because they were pushed up a little bit. Really no reason to not do that. One thing I want to mention though is that he actually doesn't spam high ground way too much. I mean, I know a lot of people do, and I think it can be a good idea, especially if you know that the enemy team doesn't have anything that really counters high ground. But Gale sees the enemy team as a Widow, they have a McCree, probably not a good time to be at high ground, and as well, if they have a very big dive comp, being a high ground can be an okay idea, but not always the best. Right here, he's kind of just pushing up, doing whatever he can. Staying on the ground again to be able to get a lot more heals off, staying next to his teammates. One thing I want to say is that he also, oftentimes if he needs to heal a certain person on his team, he'll actually walk up kind of next to them, start shooting them, and then walk back again to safety. That's something that I guess just makes your hits a lot more consistent and makes sure that you just aren't going to die. Or I guess that certain player is not going to die because you will 100% get your healing on them at all times. Something else I should also say is that he almost always goes for healing first. I know that most supports would think to do that, especially on defense. You should do that, but I see a lot of people just kind of ignoring the healing for a little bit, waiting for their teammates to get to low HP. He doesn't really do that. He goes for the healing, and then when he knows that his teammates are pretty far up, when he knows that it's it's going to be a safe team fight where his teammates have a lot of health, then he'll start to go for some damage, try to get some picks on Mercy or really anybody else, and that works out pretty well for him. It allows for him to still get a decent amount of damage out, but again, keep his teammates popped off. And especially with walls, it's not too hard to do, but that's kind of what he's going to go for. Right here, he walks into high ground, talking to the soldier, I think, so that both decide, let's get on high ground. We have soldier ult, we can go with this, we can nano, and I think nano visor, whatever we call it, and kind of just go around like that. I think we also see Gale doing a few times this game is walking around corners, and mainly staying around corners, because that's actually really safe for Ana, most characters. But then, just walking around the corner, going for an E, and trying to get a big anti. If you can get a big anti, I think in a lot of cases it can actually be more powerful than getting a good ultimate. So that's something you might want to keep in mind. And as well, getting a good sleep can also be kind of like that. Unfortunately, they don't get the kill on the Mercy right here, but that could have also been a really good idea to do. They're pushing on the point. Unfortunately, his team gets kind of pushed back a little bit. Something else I want to talk about, though, is his use of scope. He doesn't really use it way too much. He only really uses scope when A, he needs to snipe somebody, obviously. Of course, you're going to do that. I'd like to try to kill the enemy Mercy. Or B, he's like a control point distance away from people, and he needs to hit a certain character. In most other cases, though, instead of just scoping in, he just likes to kind of walk forward a little bit and heal them. So, I guess there you go with that. The scope animation does take a while. It does make you, I don't think it technically makes you slower, but it, of course, makes it that you're a lot more tunnel vision. So, there are a few negatives, and I think it makes so that your abilities are just kind of harder to use. So, whatever. There's some negatives, but yeah, he doesn't use scope way too much, but of course, they're far away. Obviously, he does. All right, here he's pushing up again. An idea that I think is important to keep in mind while playing Ana, and really just a lot of the other healer characters, is that if your teammates are pushing up and you aren't pushing up with them, oftentimes you can't get your burst heal out in time to save your teammates, and they're just going to get picked, and you probably could have saved them. I think, unfortunately, right here, he just gets picked off because two of his teammates got picked off, maybe pushed up a little bit too much. Almost actually kills the Roadhog by himself, so that's pretty cool. I think it's a sleep dart in the next second, walks around, there we go. Unfortunately, can't kill him in time. Just trying to heal his teammates in between, doing whatever he possibly can. But still, I feel like that is a pretty good example of having to push up with your team. Unfortunately, people did get cut off again, but, whatever. Try to just do the best you can. A little while ago, a soldier got cut out, and he could actually heal the soldier through all of the damage. So, there's some good times and some bad times, but at least try to do that the best you can. Right here, of course, he can't get through the other exit, so he's just trying to play as far back as he can. Trying to walk up a little bit so he can get, so that he can get a little bit more consistent heals. I feel like a lot of people would have just stayed pretty far back in that fight and not really gone up for the better heals. But he goes in, works out for him. Something else I should also say about Gale, I guess, is that oftentimes it's better to just try to stay alive, try to stay a little bit further back, maybe sometimes going a bit, but just try to stay alive and keep pumping that healing in, then going for damage by yourself. Now, on offense, that can be kind of different, depending on the situation, but on defense, it's almost always that case. So, while you should go up next to your teammates to heal them and everything, just don't go way too far by yourself, as that can often just kind of be throwing a game, especially if your other supporters like a Lucio that can't really do way too much heals. That can be kind of hard. Right here, pushes up again, unfortunately gets hooked, but whatever, they still get to hold the point for a little while, so it's not way too bad. Now right here again, pushes up with his team, doing whatever, tries to actually just force the Widowmaker back, but as you see, he actually backs off when he sees the Widowmaker and the soldier and pretty much everyone else, because while you can beat these characters as Ana, it's for the most part, a better idea to stay back a little bit and try not to risk that 1v1. It is possible, it's just you are, in general, at a pretty big disadvantage, as they can one-shot you. I guess not Soldier, but Widow can, while you can't really one-shot her. And especially against Hanzo, I don't think you should really try to take that, because you might just be throwing your defense just the second that happens. Right here, uses a super long line of sight, gets a lot of ult charge for free. If you do have the chance to just get free ult charge, why not take it? I know a lot of people just kind of stay next to their tanks right there, stay safe, but in a situation like that where the enemies don't have a tracer or anything, and where he already knows that the enemy Widowmaker is down, there's not way too much to worry about. Unfortunately, his Widowmaker gets picked in a second, so that's not really way too great. But still, he got a lot of ult charge, and now he has his ultimate for this fight, which he maybe wouldn't have had anyways in the fight otherwise. Gets a really nice grenade again. Jump straight up, start to heal his person that has the nano, and there we go. That's all I'm going to say about this. One thing I want to say is that if you don't have something to do in a fight, and if you aren't just really doing anything right now, for example, what you can do is often just try to focus the Mercy, and especially before a fight, if you can just try to focus the Mercy and kill her, that essentially gives you a +2 if you think that she has her ultimate. And even if you can just push her out of the fight for a little bit, oftentimes that's kind of worth it. Of course, focusing on healing is more important, but if there's just nothing else to do, that's kind of what you want to focus on. Right here, unfortunately, they get the point, push up a little bit. She gets 1, 2 shots. Anna, I guess the player's a he, but, you know, Anna gets 2 shots. And I think someone finally finishes it off. A thing about Anna that you might want to remember, that's kind of like with all the DPS supports, is that, A, you should try to get some damage out, because you can often finish off kills that the rest of your team just couldn't finish off by themselves. And B, even if you can't get the kill, oftentimes just getting damage for the rest of your team so that your DPS can finish off kills is also worth it. And that's kind of where I think the majority of his elims come, but it's definitely worth it to try to go for that. He gets some of the most elims in this entire game, I think, so that's actually a pretty good thing that happens this round. During this round, we also see quite a few times him going for the classic shoot, nade, shoot combo. Now that the Anna character, what the heck? Now that Anna got buffed a little bit so that her damage is 10 more, she can actually kill a lot more people like that. It's a lot harder to heal through that. I mean, if it's hit by the nade, obviously that doesn't happen, but sometimes you can kind of heal through the initial damage from your shot. But right now it just works a lot better. Right here, he literally just keeps healing the soldier, doesn't die for quite a while. That's an example of what you should be doing in a fight. If you can't really do way too much, and if you can't get next to your tanks, and if you can't damage anybody, just try to save at least one person. And if you can, maybe that person will win you the team fight, which is kind of what happened right there, honestly. So there you go with that. Unfortunately, he gets picked right there by the Junkrat, so that just kind of sucks, but his team finally finishes it off, and it works out pretty well. Again, pushing up pretty close so that he can save his team for quite a while and just make sure that he gets a lot more healing. I guess he could have played a little bit further back and tried to use his scope, but again, he usually doesn't try to go for that. Anyways, here we are to the offensive round, and as Anna, I think on offense, you can go a lot more, obviously offensive, but you can go for a lot more kills. On defense, I think you should just mainly focus on trying to heal people, trying to make sure they're always pretty close to being topped off, and then go for damage. On offense, maybe not quite as much, especially if you have another main healer, or even pretty just good side healer. You don't really have to focus on that as much. You can often play around a little bit more with your damage and try to get picks, as Anna actually is a support character that, kind of like Zen, can get a boatload of picks. At the start right here, of course, he's playing with Mercy as well, though, so I think it's a really good time to, I guess, just kind of use the offensive strategies. Right here, the Tracer just runs straight behind him. He shoots, nades, and there we go, dead Tracer. That's the thing you gotta want to go for. If you are versus a Tracer, it's actually kind of hard for her to kill you if you just play that right. But make sure that you're next to your tanks, because if it's just a simple 1v1 with no tanks next to you, it's probably not going to go way too well for you for the most part. So do play next to your tanks, do play right behind them. Sometimes he does play a little bit further back, but that's kind of what he tries to do. Also, at the beginning, I forgot to mention this. He immediately naded at the beginning, so that if there's a little bit of poke on him or on his team, he could just immediately heal through that. So there we go. There's the kind of offensive strat for you to go for. Unfortunately, I think they get wiped right there, so whatever, but, you know, whatever. Right here, just trying to pushing up, trying to get a pick. On offense, you can also get a lot more damage this way to get you a lot of ult charge, but you should be focusing on healing if you are the only healer or the main healer. But again, since he's kind of like the off healer now, you can do a little bit different. Right here, it gets unfortunately just wombo comboed. If that happens to you, do try to save your nade until you're like half HP and then nade yourself instead of nading immediately. That's all you can really do. Just try to not stay close enough that can happen to you, I guess. Right here, he pushes around to the side by himself with no teammates. That's okay for you to do sometimes on offense. Again, on defense, maybe not. But on offense, you have a lot of tools to pick people off. Almost picks off that character right there. And even if he can't pick somebody off, he's at least taking a ton of pressure away from the Junkrat and from a few other characters that are trying to shoot over here. That's honestly good enough in a lot of cases. for Gale to just kind of pull off by himself. Again, he's in a pretty good situation right here to just kind of heal now that he's gotten the pick, now that he's gotten just a little bit of damage out. Unfortunately, his team just kind of gets wiped again, but the thought process was well. I guess that's all I can really say about that. Sometimes you do well, but just kind of get outplayed. Not even you. Sometimes your team just kind of gets outplayed. So whatever. He just backs off, starts shooting. That's the thing that I think he does very often. If he starts to lose a fight with his team or just lose a fight by himself, he'll just start to back off, start shooting, continuously shoot, and that's really all I have to say about that. Just make sure that you don't just kind of waste a lot of time just running away without shooting the enemy or without healing, because sometimes people just kind of do that. Right there, of course, the obvious and classic ult to Nano Blade. That's nice. A thing I want to remind you guys about, though, if you are playing with a Genji, is to please call out in chat, Genji, you are not in my line of sight, or if you're in a Discord, of course, you don't have to do that, which they are. But, you know, if it's a random Genji, tell them either you're not in my line of sight, or say, Genji, get in front of me, we're going to ult in 3 seconds. And even if you maybe waste a second or two of the Nano Blade, which I know you don't want to waste, I'd say it's often a lot more valuable than ulting the wrong person, ulting super late, or ulting extremely stinking early because neither of you really know what you're going to do right there. It just gets comboed again right there, but I think it was good for them because it was honestly just kind of a waste of the enemy's ultimates because it was just so close to their base. So whatever, that was pretty nice for them. Alright, here another fight, walks up quite a bit, tries to go for the Mercy. If you are winning a fight, again, do try to go for the Mercy. They're kind of losing that fight right there, but almost got a good chance to kill her. And that's kind of what you want to put your focus on, because again, if you can kill the Mercy, especially on offense, that's stopping a double defensive res, and that can win the fight by itself. Right here, bop, 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 kills the Mercy, 3 shots. That's just kind of the power of Ana right now. And while you don't want to always try to go for that, because if Mercy's getting healed, you can't really kill her if like there's another healer trying to go for her. But if there isn't another healer trying to save the Mercy, you can. And that's kind of what goes on right here. I think goes for a 2-man or a 1-man nano boost right there. You know, works out well enough. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out well enough. The enemy team just wipes his team again. But as you see, Gale is still alive. And Gale's essentially been alive like almost forever. Unless he just gets picked by some random stuff, mainly by the Roadhog hooks. Because, I don't know, sometimes those just kind of weave their way through. He's almost always alive. And that allows for his team to just always be really topped off. And for him to have a lot of ultimates charged. Gale just has a ton of those. And having ults can win you team fights in itself, and I think that's one of the most important things about Ana right now, because while her healing isn't, I guess, as impressive as Moira's right now anymore, and while her other parts of her kits aren't as important in this current meta, the ultimate can win a fight by itself. One thing you want to make sure you're doing, though, if you are ulting somebody, is to make sure to, I'd say, try, if you possibly can, to grenade them right after you ult or right before you ult, and then start healing them the second that you go for that. If you can keep the person that's nanoed at full health, or if you can keep them at very good health, that's going to make so that they can play really aggressively, they can really just go for a lot of stupid plays, and it'll work, and so that your nano can just, overall, be an aggressive play. However, if you're just healing the rest of your team, while that can be good, a lot of the times, that person that you nanoed might just die, especially if they aren't someone with self-heal, like McCree. That can be a good example of someone that's kind of awkward to nano, and especially if you aren't healing them, it's even a little bit more awkward to nano. Right there, the classic, again, nano visor, you know, just doing whatever. One thing I want to say right here that was important about Gale's play is that he actually played really close to his teammates, and what that did was that it allowed so that the enemy McCree couldn't kill him. He was out of the enemy McCree's line of sight that entire time. Otherwise, he would have died, and he was next to his tanks instead. That's just kind of what happens if you play next to your tanks and the enemy team, you know, just don't dive you at the very beginning and don't have a super good dive comp. It can just make so that they can't really flank you, make so that they can't really just take you out anyways until all the tanks are gone. And that doesn't always happen if you're just super far back. And I think that's why he's playing so close, especially just because of the team comps that are going on right now. And I feel like overall the team comps that you're going to see a lot more, that's going to kind of be the case. Against a Winston, I want to mention this. What you can do is to just try to walk up, walk into a shield and tell your team to walk into a shield. Go immediately for the nade and just try to have your team burst him as fast as humanly possible, because if the enemy team doesn't go in immediately as he does, you're probably going to win that team fight. However, if your team doesn't actually focus him, you're probably going to lose. So there you go. That's kind of how you counter that character with this character in in competitive play. But yeah, just make sure to try to call it out. And that's kind of what you have to do with Ana and with all of her plays. As supports, I feel like they're very important to call out what you're going to be doing and how to counteract certain opponents. Otherwise, a lot of the time your teammates just won't go in, and a lot of the times they just won't know that you're going to be healing them or nanoing them or anything like that. All right, there again, goes for the heals immediately after he gives the nano to somebody. walks up pretty close, gets another, I think, 2-man or 3-man grenade, so that was nice, and they're finally just kind of finishing off this fight, pushing up to the final bit of the point, and there we go with that, of course, just topping people off. Overall, I feel like Gale is a really good example of kind of how to play this character, playing far up, playing next to his teams, getting out a lot of damage, getting out a lot of healing, but not dying way too much either. That's just kind of how you want to put it all together, and Gale just kind of does it really well. So hopefully you learned something from that, and hopefully you learned a little bit from the tips I tried to gain from his gameplay. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to see any stuff like this in the future, please make sure to leave a like, comment down below what character you want to see for the next time, or hit that subscribe button and the notification button to see videos like this one in the future. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.